So I'm going to share something with y'all that's relatively personal. Excuse me. Ever since my mom died a couple years ago, it has made me very sensitive. Like, it does not take much now for me to feel. And I did not realize prior to my mom's passing that I was very numb to the world, to emotions, to people around me. And as I did some soul searching and embarked upon the spiritual journey, I realized that based on my own childhood traumas and family issues, that my body, my mind, my soul developed a coping mechanism to where I did not feel. Now, as I'm older, I actually enjoy feeling. Even when the feelings are feelings of sadness or despair, after I get through it, I enjoy the fact that I can feel. Take a look at me yesterday. I was a complete mess after watching Iyanla Fix My Life.
I don't understand for the life of me how people can treat people. Y'all, Jesus Lord, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it through part 2 of this Iyanla episode. Whew. Whew. And y'all wonder why people be out here acting crazy. You never know what somebody done went through. Jesus Christ. Y'all, this one done took me out of here. Jesus Christ. Lord, help me right now. Y'all, I'm no good after this episode. It amazes me that people can be this cruel to one another. My God.
All right, so as y'all can see, I was no more good, honey. Iyanla had me crying to the thing. For those of y'all who did not watch Iyanla Vanzant Fix My Life, really quickly, the episode was about five siblings whose mother was crack addicted. 4 of the 5 ended up being placed in foster care. And throughout their journey in group homes and foster care, they were abused, starved, so on and so forth. The most atrocious of the claims is that they had to survive off of 2 slices of bread and a bottle of water for the day. And in order to get food or to get permission to go outside or just, extra little freedoms, they would have to perform sexual acts on one another. And as a result of it, it has left these kids, these young adults, all messed up. The younger siblings are mad with the older brother because he used to, perform sex acts on them, but he was forced to do it in order to survive. The twins, boy and girl, they were forced to perform sexual acts on one another. The young girl was molested and raped by various people throughout her foster care system. It was very bad. Then, to add insult to injury, they have an older sister to whom the grandma raised her. And we've seen this situation so many times amongst the black family where, okay, the drug-addicted parent, the first child, the grandparent or the great-grandparent takes custody of, but the subsequent children, for whatever reason, end up in foster care because this older person does not have the capacity, the finances to do it, or hell, quite frankly, they just feel like, shit, I raised my damn kids, I can't. Or perhaps, the mother is so cracked out and she's in another city, a different place, the family don't know where she is, and they can't get the children, and the subsequent children end up in foster care. So there's a level of resentment that the 4 children who were in foster care have against the older sister who was raised and loved by the grandma. Unbeknownst to them, the older sister was also a product of molestation from somebody in the family. Now, before we get into this, I'm going to tell y'all something. Black people, we got this thing where we like, oh, that's some white people shit, or we don't do that, or child, that's white people. I'm starting to understand that the only difference between us and white people is that they more vocal with they shit and based on shame and religion and the church and or vestiges of slavery and tradition, that we just keep our shit hush hush. But it's starting not to look like a black or a white thing and a human thing. The more I began to look at Iyanla, and the more I begin to have conversations with friends that I respect and that trust me, I am starting to realize that more people than not have been molested or touched by a family member, and it saddens me. It saddens me. It honestly makes me want to ask my sisters, cousins, did somebody touch you? My brothers and male cousins too. I'm having conversations with my friends, and they're like, well, it did not happen to me, but it happened to my sister, and it's opened my eyes that people being molested is running, or it runs more rampant than I was aware of, which is sad. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but lately as I've been talking and having conversations with everybody, they break down and say, well, yeah, I understand because this happened to me. And it's sad. This episode in particularly made me cry because of the middle brother. When people always talk about this thing about seeing sadness in somebody's eyes, it's just as if he had no soul. I can't describe it. He just moved through this earth like a zombie. He looked dead. The young woman, oh my God, this girl is so beautiful, yet broken. She has absolutely no voice. And it was powerful to me that when she started crying at one point during the show, Iyanla was like, you crying, but you're not making a sound. And on the surface, I was just like, people cry different ways. Some people scream and shout, some people moan, and Iyanla was like, that's representative of what you've had to do. Be silent all this damn time and endure all this pain. And I never thought about it that way. I never had the training or exposure to think about it that way. And that was very, very powerful. Iyanla's whole situation, her entire show from beginning to end, has really taught me one thing: compassion. Compassion. And that is why I am now able to look at the worst of the worst, the most vile of the vile, and have compassion. Down to R. Kelly. What he did was so wrong, but I have compassion for him. This stuff going on with Michael Jackson, I don't know if he did it. I ain't seen the documentary. My soul can't take no another damn rape documentary. Compassion. If he did, I'm outraged that he did, but I'm more intrigued as to why. What happened to him that made him do this? Now, the documentary, the Iyanla episode does not make any reference to what happened to the people who were entrusted with the care of these children. I would be curious to know where they are now and if the state can pick up a case against these people. However, my curious mind says to me, although they committed these atrocities, I want to know what happened to them that would make them do this. Compassion. I am a firm believer that nobody wakes up and voluntarily wants to be anything that isn't socially acceptable. I don't think anybody wakes up and consciously says, good day, son. I want to be a fucked up individual today. Nobody wakes up and says, good day, son. I want to have an attitude today. I think everybody living and breathing wants to wake up and be happy and productive and successful and accepted and beautiful and all these other positive things. I think things happen to people throughout life which hinder their ability to do so. I think people are ill-equipped with the proper coping mechanisms or the proper guidance on how to deal with certain things, and it creates monsters, bad behaviors, attitudes, so on and so forth. The biggest thing this episode did for me was strengthen the compassion that I have for people. They said that the boy, the youngest son, stayed fighting and stayed going to jail, fighting for other people. He would get into fights that he did not start, fighting on other people's behalf. And when Iyanla got down to the root of it, he was saying, I fight for people around me the way I wish somebody would have fought for me. Now, let's apply him and them to romantic relationships or just to a co-worker relationship. Can you imagine being co-workers with this person? And when you leave work, you getting in the car, calling your Nessa girl, and like, bitch, I'm so ready to quit this damn job. That motherfucker in that cubicle next to me get on my goddamn nerve. We was in a meeting. Let me tell you what this bitch did. Or let me tell you how this bitch reacted. And you sitting here hating this coworker, thinking the person is crazy, thinking they're an asshole without giving any allowance to what this person may have gone through that has made them the way they are. And I use the co-worker example because that was the one situation with other adults that I was not in control of, where I used to have the most frustration with people. You know, you don't get to choose your co-worker. You can curate your friends. You can curate your social spaces. You can't curate who you work with. You just stuck with these mofos. And so I can remember being on the phone just mad with certain co-workers or certain people in the break room I couldn't stand to look at. Or some of them I'd be outright rude and wouldn't speak and keep walking. I wish now I could go back to some of those scenarios and approach them differently with the mind that I now have. Imagine you being a man trying to date that young woman, Kadira. Imagine what it's like being a man trying to date her and the issues that you have to deal with. And one will get on the phone with their homeboys and be like, man, this bitch crazy. I don't know what's wrong with this bitch. She tripping. You know what I'm saying? But imagine if you understood how and why she was tripping, how your approach would be different, and how you would love her differently. Imagine a world where we did not immediately just jump down somebody's throat when they had an outburst, and yet we tried to understand why. Imagine a school system that did not disregard children because they had an outburst in class or they got into a fight, but yet they sought to understand. Because the thing about it is, if we had a more participative school system and a more understanding society, perhaps somebody could have intervened with these children long before things got this far. But we're so quick to throw a disciplinary action at folks, throw them in jail, and discount them and move the hell on. And granted, we live busy lives as human beings. We got our own shit going on. Most of us don't have the resources, the bandwidth, or the emotional or mental capacity to be sitting around here trying to heal people on an individual basis. I get it. But just imagine if we sought to understand before we sought to be understood. And that's what this episode did for me. Y'all know I'm on this spiritual journey, this one with the earth situation, doing my yoga situation. And, you know, Iyanla had that young man speaking to that hole, which had me laugh. I laughed, but after I stopped laughing and I started to understand that, you know, she has an unorthodox approach and she's a Yoruba priestess, it's got me interested in looking up the Yoruba, I guess, religion or Yoruba practice. I don't know what's the proper way to phrase it. I haven't done it yet, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. Iyanla is doing the Lord's work. She's doing God's work. Y'all know I'm not a churchgoer. I don't really get down with the white Jesus and the Bible situation. But there's something about this woman that I connect with, and it's left me more interested in just going back to some of the more tribal, innate, original practices of our ancestors. She's definitely done that. On the next episode, they get the mom. The mom, I guess after the kids left, they initially tried to get the mom to participate. She was unwilling to. I guess after the kids went home or whatever, somehow or another, the mother wanted to participate. And Iyanla looks as if she's going to have the time of her life trying to deal with this woman, because she, in a typical fucked up individual way, is giving this whole, I said sorry, what else can I do? And there's atone. You can atone. And there's a right and a wrong way to atone. And it looks as if Iyanla is going to get in her ass about how to atone for what she's did to set these children free and give them some sort of healing. To the mother's credit, and I haven't watched it yet, you know, she was crack addicted. We are now starting to see the full manifestation of the crack era. The late 70s, the 80s, the early 90s was a motherfucker for black people as it related to crack. And we're now seeing these crack babies become adults. You know, the fruits of the crack labor. These, you know, roosters don't came to roost or roast, or however they said it. These flowers don't blossom. We are now starting to see the full magnitude of crack era, of crack babies. These people on this show, they were crack babies. And now, I mean, we've yet to see the full realization of what's going on, because now these individuals are going to have children. And unless the pathology and the generational curses are broken and healed, then the implications of this are going to roar ever on. White America, I hope, and going back to the compassion piece, I hope that y'all are able to learn quickly and expeditiously from the vestiges of drugs, because this opioid addiction situation that y'all are going through right now with this heroin and these damn pills, these Percocets and oxycodone and all the rest of that, y'all ass gonna be in the same damn situation 15, 20, 30 years from now. Don't let these people live and be in vain. I know a lot of people of color may be like, fuck y'all. Again, compassion. Despite the fact that y'all disproportionately get help for y'all's issues and y'all's get called an epidemic while ours get called, you know, ours got called a crack epidemic and y'all's got called a crisis, or however they wording it. Despite the fact that it was unfair, just as a human, I don't wish this shit on nobody. Compassion. Compassion. Though a lot of my people will take exception with what I'm saying and the fact that I even care about what y'all's community is going to look like 30 years from now. Compassion. Compassion. That's what this episode was for me. Y'all, that cry that y'all saw yesterday rendered me no good, and it left me slightly depressed. But I knew today I had to get up and get some sunshine and get up out that bed. A lot of people was like, you shouldn't watch things like that. But you know what? Things like that keep me human. It took a day out of my year. There's 365 days in a year. I got 364 more to have good days. As long as my good days outweigh my bad days, I won't complain. Bad.